I have suffered the conditions of multiple chemical sensitivities around various scents and products, food sensitivities, and electromagnetic wave sensitivities. For several years, I noticed that I was developing more and more of a sensitivity to various foods. And as I became aware of the sensitivity, it seemed like the list grew longer. And that was despite any efforts that I was making towards eliminating foods that, for instance, I knew had chemicals in them. And the food sensitivity has just become overwhelming to the point where, as of a year ago, I was at a point where there was literally nothing that I could eat that didn't have a very serious effect in my digestive system. Now, last year at Easter, so that would have been about April of 2010, I ate a small Easter egg, and at that time my tongue swole and filled my whole mouth, and that was a very, very scary situation. And that was kind of the climax of what happened in the food area. It just got worse and worse till just before I went on the program. I was in a situation where I was not digesting anything and hadn't eaten for 2 months. But the other worst symptom was the amount of mucus that was being produced. It got to the point where I couldn't breathe, and I was struggling just to even take a breath in order to talk. And by the time I went to the program, I was literally taking deep breaths, speaking a few words lightly, and then having to take another deep breath just to walk and to talk. During the last 6 years, I have experienced pneumonia every spring, about the same time of the year as it is now, February and March. Last year, in 2010, I also was diagnosed with pneumonia twice throughout the summer, in addition to my springtime normal. Now, the other kinds of symptoms that I was experiencing included cold sores that were continuously breaking out on my lips, and eczema that was manifesting itself all over my body. Other symptoms included my weight gain. Now, I didn't find this out until I was actually in the program and follow-up information that came to me, that when the body's under stress and the type of hormones that it's experiencing, the body itself produces this fatty layer all around your midriff and hips, and then it stores all these extra toxins in it. And it's very, very difficult to get rid of. My sense of smell through all of this. It became so acute, and it was diagnosed very specifically by the immunologist that my olfactory nerve was on overtime. And so everywhere I went, I was smelling laundry detergents way beyond what the normal person would be, and or cleaning products or bath wash supplies. And it would hit me like a wall. But worse than just being headachy or nauseous, which I understand most people experience under the same circumstances, I literally would vomit on the spot. And that became a very humiliating experience on the whole. And the top of the list there would have to be cigarette smoking. I couldn't even get tap water past my nose. Whatever was in it, it didn't matter. I couldn't get it down, and that led to the situation where I was now getting dehydrated. So that became a critical issue. In addition to that, I live in a valley, and most people are using wood fuel, and so wood smells became another issue for me in my whole environment here. So by the time October rolled around, I was unable to function at all. I was sleeping around the clock. I was so weak that I had to have people here to actually help me get off the couch and out of bed in order to be able to get up and go to the bathroom. I was constantly nauseous, not eating at all. We had to struggle to get fluids down. The doctor's tests had already come back and showed that my liver was showing definite signs of overtoxicity, and of course that is the main toxin reducer of our whole body system, and so that was being jeopardized. I was diagnosed as possible gallstones or maybe an obstruction, but there was so much inflammation in the gallbladder that they couldn't tell. And then eventually I was diagnosed with congestion in the lower part of the lungs, which actually has an acronym called BOOP. And that was extremely serious. That was well beyond just having pneumonia at this time. So that is the condition that I went to the program, and I was literally on death's door. So my good friend, because I couldn't go on the computer, went to the computer, did a search on the internet, found Annie's website, and registered me, and the next thing I knew, I was going off to Vancouver, not knowing how I was going to do it, how I was going to get there, but I was going. So I'm often asked about how quickly I saw changes in terms of my recovery. Well, for me, it was immediate. I kept a diary of the events and the unfoldments, and I'm going to read to you exactly what happened for me during that time period. I had experienced definitely a change in my internal clock, my internal temperature gauge. So now I was coming back to a normal homeostasis. I wasn't always in hot flashes or cold. I had a decrease in mucus. By the first week, I was not hot at night at all. My energy level went up. I was eating both lunch and supper. By the second week, I was sleeping all night. I didn't have to wake up and clear the mucus, and I was clear during the day. The third week, I sold my marital home and needed to work 5 hours a day, clearing the belongings out of it, cleaning it, and that included not only being exposed to the typical chemicals that I had reacted to before, but now a dust environment and a contaminated environment. And I was able to handle it and not get sick. By December, the doctor's reports had already come back indicating that the levels of inflammation were extremely reduced, and they followed that up again with another test which proved it had even gone further down, to the point eventually, of course, where I didn't have inflammation at all. The congestion was completely gone. By January, my CT scan indicated that there was no cloudiness in my lungs whatsoever. I had another CT scan done just recently that confirmed that for the second time to make sure that it was definitely clear. I had mentioned earlier about the weight that I had gained. Well, I definitely have lost the weight, and even with eating again, my weight is steady now in terms of where it has been for most of my life. And so I feel very good about that. And the other thing that I think I should point out to you is that I was living on ibuprofen and Roboxacet because of all the inflammation in my body. And since I was on the program in November, and it is now March, I have not had any medications at all. So obviously, since the program, I've noticed a lot of major changes in my life. The most important one for me is that I'm fully engaged in life again. I'm back into my active lifestyle that I had before. I can now go into any environment because I'm not affected by the smells. I can walk down the grocery aisles, not be affected. I can have perfumes around me and not feel nauseous. I can even go into restaurants and not be upset over the smell of foods. I can be around people who are smoking and not feel like I'm going to vomit anymore. So I am what I call, as close as I can be, normal. I just want to recommend this program. And I also want to convey that because it deals with the power of neuroplasticity, I have a lot of faith in the ability of the brain to change its own patterns, and that's what this is all about. And when I look at the facts of my life during this past year, in less than a year's time, I saw no less than 9 professionals, went to 33 appointments, most of which had to be accompanied with someone because I was so weak. I had 3 CT scans, 3 X-rays, and 2 ultrasounds done, and none of them were able to help me. And this program has saved my life.